How's it going, everybody? Incident Sub SG back again with another Buddyfight video. Okay, so I have updated my Dungeon World Demon Lord deck, and it should be a slightly better deck compared to what I used to fight against Piri back then, or rather known as Gabriel. But anyway, alright, so moving on, a little bit of introduction to my deck. It's not the typical kind of scissors, paper, stone adventurer with dungeon enemy kind of build. My build is more towards dungeon enemies, demon lords especially. And I run majority size 3s in this deck. It is a size 3 deck. So, yep. Anyway, start things off, we have our flag and our buddy. Our buddy will definitely be Guardian Dragon of Demon Lord Castle Cruiser. So he is a very old card from the Perfect Buddy pack from 1 or 2 years ago, I can't remember. But yeah, he's the golden background card. His effect is call cost of pay 2 gauge and putting the top card of your deck into this card's soul. And when this card enters the field, you may choose up to one destruction or demon lord card from your drop zone and put it into your hand. And it has soul guard and lifelink too. It has relatively high stats as well, 837, and no double attack sadly. But anyway, earlier on regarding this, it's actually destruction, not destroy, because I believe there's some kind of error. But yep, anyway, that's our flag and buddy. Next, moving on to impact monsters, we run 4 copies of this Cruiser second manifestation Demon Knight. So yeah, this card is a very interesting card because his stats are pretty high. 935, no double attack, size 3 impact monster, a call cost of pay 3 gauge and putting this card on top of a demon lord monster on your field. So yeah, his effect is very interesting because when he enters the field, you can choose one card from your hand and call it without paying its call cost. So most of these cards you will see later on, the call costs are 2 gauges and above, and they usually come with the put one card into your soul effect. Until the card leaves the field, it is a size 0 and can also attack during your final phase. So some of the rulings I need to clarify with this card, I'm not really sure yet, but I'm quite certain that it is. When you put this card, the Cruiser, on top of any demon lords, their life link still counts. So it's sort of the Duo Jaeger Revolted ruling back then. They were saying how if Revolted runs out of souls, you can just put another Revolted on top of it and whatnot. But yeah, this is the Cruiser's ruling. And also can attack during your final phase. I'm not certain, but I'm quite sure that the double attack will apply if the card has double attack. So yep, that's 4 copies of the Cruiser second manifestation Demon Knight. Okay, moving on to the next group of size 3s, we of course have 4 copies of our buddy, Guardian Dragon of Demon Lord Castle Cruiser, skill already done. Next we have 4 copies of Son of Demon Lord Delis Hylo. Another quite interesting card. Once again, for size 3 having very high stats of 927, this card has double attack and lifelink 2, a call cost of 2 gauge, no soul guard. But he has a very interesting counter effect. You may pay 1 gauge and discard a card from your hand. If you do, destroy a size 1 or less monster on your opponent's field, and for this turn, if this card were to leave the field, it would remain on the field instead. So this will include it being bouncing off, like example, Hero World Zeta, there's this like wind demon that will allow you to bounce a card on your opponent's field back to his or her hand. This card can stay on the field. Yep. So it gets a free bomb as well, and there's quite a few interesting combos you can do with this deck. Next for the size 3s, we have Hazard Dragon Emperor Galdol Goamer. I have no idea. But he's a dual card, dungeon enemy, demon lord, dual dragon attribute. So that explains the dungeon world and danger world. And having a 826 stat with double attack, soul guard and lifelink 2. Call cost of 2 gauge and putting the top card of your deck into this card's soul. And active effect of you may discard a card from your hand. If you do, destroy all opponents' monsters on their left and right. And for this turn, this card gets 1 critical. And sadly, you can only use this effect once. So yeah, I mean, most of the time Zodiac players will, from what I see, they put their Zodiac on the left or right column, and yeah, so this card can just bomb and whatnot. But yep, that's Hazard Dragon Emperor right over there. Moving on to size 2s, we only run 3 copies of size 2s, and that is of course our third Omni Waterlord Mysaria. Okay, so why I run Mysaria instead of some other size 3 such as maybe Dragon Emperor Lord or Dragon Demon Lord Agdra? Because first of all, Mysaria is freaking awesome. I love Mysaria. And next he has double attack, so yep, that's one thing. And if you somehow do not have a size, if you did not pull a size 3, you can use his 2 Soul Guard to sort of defend your center until you get a size 3. But it's quite unlikely that you won't get a size 3. Okay, next moving on to size 0s. Yes, we do run size 0 in this deck. We run 4 copies of Chaos Blade Joker. So Chaos Blade Joker is a very interesting card. Same goes for the other Joker cards, but it has a 5/2 stats for size 0, which is very powerful. But his core cost is very heavy of a 3 gauge. But it's a dual card, Legend World and Dungeon World, attribute Asgard, Dungeon Enemy, as well as Demon Lord. So if you do not notice, all of our monsters have a Demon Lord attribute, and of course his actual effect is what we use to call him out most of the time. When this card is discarded from your hand, you may pay 1 life. If you do, call this card from a drop zone without paying its core cost of 3 gauge. So you can discard this card by activating let's say Galdogoma's bombing effect and Daily's High-Lows remain of you effect. And of course his second effect is pretty good as well. When this card enters the field, for this turn, a monster on your field gets critical +1. So note that it's a monster, so Chaos Blade Joker himself can also gain the critical. So that's one of the combos you can do with the deck. Now moving on to spell cards. Okay, so one of the staples in a Demon Lord deck in my opinion would definitely be Magical Eyes Release. So why I say that this card is a staple, his effect, the card's effect is you may only cast this card if you have a Demon Lord on your field. So if you do not notice, all of our monsters are Demon Lords, and you may put the top two cards of your deck into your gauge and put a card from your opponent's gauge into his or her drop zone. So it's essentially you steal 1 gauge from your opponent and you gain 2. Very interesting card, and do note that the card's attribute is Demon Lord, so you can definitely fish this card out with our buddy Del Cruza, since its effect is put 1/1 destruction or Demon Lord into your hand, which does not imply to monsters only. Okay. Next, we run 4 copies of the main defense card, Divine Protection or Shalsana. Why I run this card is because, first of all, it's essentially a green dragon shield of a 1 gauge cost, but it costs 1 gauge because you can also use this if you have a fortified center. What does that mean? What that means is essentially, if you have a center monster, you can still use Divine Protection or Shalsana and regain a 1 life point, which is very important in this deck. Okay, next we run 4 copies of Reset Button. Okay, Reset Button is pretty much a staple in Dungeon World. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I find that a lot of Dungeon World players actually run this card. Okay, so if there's 1 or more cards in your gauge, put all your gauge into your deck. If you do, shuffle your deck and put the top 4 cards of your deck into your gauge. You may only cast Reset Button once per turn. Okay, so you might be thinking, what the hell, isn't this like a hyper energy? Wrong. So what this does is you start off with 2 gauge in a game, and you charge and draw, so that gives you 3 gauge. You buddy call the cruiser, you're left with 1, so you just fish out Reset Button and chuck the gauge back into your deck and you gain 4. So yeah, do note that the attribute is Dungeon Enemy, Demon Lord. So once again, another Demon Lord to fish out with the cruiser. Next, we run only 3 copies of Dangerous Fuse. Okay, Dangerous Fuse has always been one of my favorite cards in the entire game, mainly because of how interesting his effect is. It's one of the first few cards that came out along with Dungeon World itself, so he has a very long effect, but bear with me. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck, reveal 1 to your opponent, return the cards face down, and shuffle them, and your opponent picks a card at random from the 2 cards. If the card chosen by your opponent has the same card name as the card revealed with this effect, put the 2 cards into your hand. If not, put 2 into your gauge. So no matter what, it's a +1 because you throw 1 out for dangerous fields and you gain 2 cards. But essentially, anyway, how do I put this? I can only get 3 copies because yeah, it's a rather difficult card to find, and yeah, you can have a little bit of fun with this card. So yeah, especially when the 2 cards revealed are like the same cards, and that's like an ultimate troll for your opponent. But anyway, we have 3 copies of Hidden Crossbow next. Counter destroy a monster on your opponent's field with 3000 or less defense. That's it. And yes, it's a destruction, so you can fish the card out with the cruiser. Next, we run 2 copies of Obstinacy Drink, Bunny Call. So Bunny Call is essentially like a Dragon from Dragon World, of a pay 1 gauge, but you don't gain life points. So yeah. In this deck, all of the Demon Lords actually have lifelink except Chaos Blade Joker, and their cruiser, second form of course. But this card is really important because you get to keep your Demon Lord on your field and save yourself from the lifelink. Yep. Next, we run 2 copies of Golden Treasure Box. So Golden Treasure Box is another fairly interesting card because it's like a gamble on your own side. You may only cast this card if you have 6 life or less. Put a top card of your deck into your drop zone. If that card is a monster, draw cards equal to the size of that card. If not, put the top card of your deck into your gauge and draw a card. So what this means is flip the top card of your deck into your drop zone. If it's a size 3, you draw 3 cards. If it's a size 0, sadly Chaos Blade Joker, you draw none. So you just chuck this card out for nothing. And if it's a spell, base impact card, or a weapon card, you can just charge and draw 1. So yeah, pretty decent card over there. Next, moving on to base impact. Base impact being 1 copy of Darkness Final Mission card, World End. Sadly, I can only find 1 copy. I'm still looking for 1 more copy. If any one of you guys have it and you live in Singapore, please tell me. I'm only looking for the parallel foil version. So yep. So now essentially if I get a card, I'll use it. If I don't, so be it. But yep. Okay, so it's a Demon Lord attribute, so you can fish the card out with the cruiser once again. Set spell and final phase impact. When your Demon Lord on your field attacks, put the top card of your deck into this card's soul face down. At the end of your attack phase, if there are 5 or more cards in this card's soul, destroy all the cards on your opponent's field. His or her life becomes 1 and destroy this card. So yeah, you're telling your opponent, oh my gosh, my field is double attack. You give me impact call 1 time, you habis, you die. So yeah, this is a really good counter against Dragon Zwei, but then again, most of the time you can't survive long enough to activate World End. I mean, I'm not a very good buddy fighter, so yeah, but this deck works really well. Next, for weapon, we have Magical Beast Tamer Flute, G-Boy or Good Boy or something like that. It's Australian, I think. But anyway, equip cost of pay 1 gauge, a 4/2 stat. Counter, activate, you may pay 1 gauge and rest this card. If you do, stand a dungeon enemy on your field. So this essentially gives their cruiser, the golden buddy pack one, our buddy, a double attack of 1 gauge cost, but yeah, not really an issue with reset button and dangerous fields. And do note that this card is a really good card against Zodiac. So example, if I call maybe Galdo Goma and Gravity Rest, the card is rested, I can pay 1 gauge and stand the card and re-equip another one. So gauge is not really a very big issue. It's only one of those few times that gauge becomes an issue in your deck. But anyway, moving on to the cards and why I don't play those. So some of the cards that I can play are definitely Rod of Mysteria for the bombing effect, but it's 2 gauge, so it's quite expensive, although the equip cost is free. Next, Dangerous Bit of Damage. I will consider this in my future videos. If I ever do update this deck, I will definitely make a video about it. But yeah, you can pause and read the effect right there. Very interesting card. Next, Dig a Hole. Once again, a destruction, so you can definitely fish this out with the cruiser. And this card is not once per turn, so you can definitely spam the card. but once again it's during your opponent's turn, so yeah. Next, Command of the Waterlord. I don't play this card because it's a pay 3 gauge, that's one thing, and like most of the time this card is only used for Cold-Blooded Mysaria, so yeah. Next, this impact card, 100 Demons, raid 100 Legion. You can definitely pause and read the effect right there. And of course, one of my favorite cards in this game, Dungeon Explosion. Yeah, a very, very interesting card. Okay, so yep. And of course, this card used to be a staple in Demon Lord deck, but since I run a size 3 deck, I have no use for this card. You can read the effect right there. And of course, a lot of people have been telling me why I don't play this card, but they forgot that the Quintessence of Cassiad, you may only cast this card if you don't have a monster in your center. Like, really? I run a size 3 deck. So, yep. That's pretty much it for this video, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this fairly long video on my Demon Lord deck. If, once again, I'm still testing out the deck, if there are any updates, I'll definitely make another video for you guys. And do leave comments down below, positive comments, please. Please don't say, oh, why is this not P4, or why don't you play the meta build or whatnot. And I hope to see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.